Welcome back to Small College Conversations. I'm Jim Abbott. I'm the founder of the business of small college athletics. I'm joined today by an old friend of mine, Jeff Bussell, the athletic director at Vanguard University. Jeff, thanks so much for your time today.
Jim, so great to see you. Grateful to be here today and looking for the opportunity to talk to you.
Well, I am too. I introduced you as an old friend, and Jeff, it just seems to me, and I don't know if it's been 10 years or 15 years, I really don't know, but I know that when I first met you, you were a sports information director at Jessup University, and you were trying to figure out how to become an athletic director. So just to kind of get us started, share a little bit of your career path.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And it was almost been 15 years now, I think. I went to the second annual BOSCA event where we first met, and such a great opportunity there. Back then, it was very intimate, 40 people, and really allowed me to grow in my administrative skills at that time. And I was an SID at that time. And actually, I just transitioned out of being coach and administrator. I coached basketball for 20 years. And, growing up, I really thought that was my path. I actually thought I was going to be a high school PE teacher and basketball coach. And then once I finished college, I decided to try the college basketball coaching ranks for a while. And took my first job in Duluth, Minnesota at the College of St. Scholastica as an assistant coach. Got paid the big money, $11,000 plus room and meals. And but it was an opportunity. They were NAIA Division III at that time. And then I had a great experience the first year there, and then transitioned down to Concordia University in St. Paul, Minnesota. And they were actually just in the transition into Division II when I went down there and joined the staff during that. And had a great 2 years there, but ended up moving back. I was in Minnesota, ended up moving back to California, and I actually got a high school coaching job and a PE teacher job. And I also became the AD at a little private school at that time. In high school, really great opportunity for me to dip into the administrative side as well. And I was the PE teacher, and then moved from the PE teacher up to vice principal. So I became an administrator and basketball coach, and eventually circled back around at my time at Jessup to become the basketball coach and assistant basketball coach. And I added sports information and game management director and athletics marketing coordinator to that job at that time. And, it started out as a 50-50 coaching and administration. And by year number 5, it was more like 80% administration and 20% coaching, and really felt like I needed to make the decision on what the next steps were for me. I needed to choose one or the other, and feel like I made the best choice. I wrestled because I'd been in coaching for so long, but wrestled and felt like administration was the way for me to go. And really enjoyed my time as a sports information director, but that, opened the door to become the director of athletics at the University of Antelope Valley for 2 years, and then brought me down here to Vanguard after that. And I've been here at Vanguard for 10 years. It's hard to believe that I've been here for 10 years, but looking back on the journey, it was just, going from coaching to administration to doing both. And now being here as athletic director has just been hasn't always been the easiest path, but it has been the most rewarding. Just met a lot of great people along the way.
Yeah, my memory, and this is true for all of us, but my memory for you is there were some uncertainties there.
Mm-hmm.
There were some opportunities, but maybe, is this the right opportunity or not? And almost sometimes, to some extent, you just have to get that AD experience.
Mm-hmm.
And not every AD experience is the same. So yeah. What advice would you give? Let's say you're Jim Abbott, mm-hmm. and you meet a young guy who's been coaching and doing administrative stuff, and maybe he's working as an SID. What advice would you give to that person who thinks they want to become an athletic director?
Wow, great question. Now that I've been through that pattern, but it really comes down to what works for you individually and what's best for you in your situation. I know for me, family, it was a really important part of it, having a couple kids and, recruiting, when I loved it when I was younger, but started getting tired of recruiting. But one of the things I would say is to take that experience that you have as a coach or being the SID or whatever you have, and build upon the relationships that you've built during that time, and really to take that into your next step of being an athletic administrator The seat is different. It is different. It's kind of like moving from assistant coach to head coach, right? It's 18 inches apart, but yet it is different. So I would encourage people to really dive in. One thing that I love, Jim, is meeting you. You were just, I had lots of questions and trying to figure it out for myself at that time. And I love how real you were with me. Like, you really want this job, and kind of prepared me for what was there. But until you sit in the seat, it becomes reality. So I'd really encourage people to reach out to other ADs who have made that transition, to really hear the skills that those ADs used to get where they were today. I think that's been the most beneficial for me, and what BOSCA has been the number of times I've been able to attend, is that it just brought connection with other people who are in the seat and who had transitioned to the seat, to give a better perspective of really what you're going to be facing once you get there.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. You have to build experiences, and for so many people, being able to talk to the folks you work with and make them aware of your aspirations and have them support it. And when I say support it, what I really mean is give me those opportunities for responsibility that create some experience for me to lead an athletic department. So anyway, for anyone listening, what I want them to know is there is no one singular path to become a small college athletic director. You and I have both heard presenters talk, if you want to do it, you got to come from the fundraising world. And I listen to some of that and I think, well, wait a minute, that's not true. I know very successful athletic directors who were SIDs, athletic trainers, started in a variety of other areas. So anyway, all right.
Jim, I'd like to just be off that because it was those different experiences for me. So the coach, I understand, sitting in the coaching chair, I got to understand what coaching was like, right? Sitting in the SID spot, what I really was able to do is connect to other coaches, really, and learn about them and build those relationships, as well as the student athletes. And one of the things that I added, so I was the sports information director and the game management director, and I was coaching. And the one I added was athletics marketing and fundraising. And I really got into that because our VP at Jessup at the time wanted to get us on the radio. And so I came up, thanks to BOSCA, I built a plan out to get a fundraising sheet, and I went out, walked the streets to the different restaurants, and was able to raise the money. I think at that time it was $8,000 to get us on there, and we were able to raise that money through doing that. And I took on that opportunity. I always tell people, I've had a lot of experience, even from sweeping the gym floor. Just take every experience you can and really try to figure out your leadership style.
Yeah, that's terrific. Well, I am shocked when you say that you have been at Vanguard for 10 years now. And when I think about your time at Vanguard, what I know is really one of the biggest projects, not just for you, but maybe in the history of that athletic department, has been the decision to transition from NAIA to NCAA Division II. Mm-hmm. So take us back to the start of that process and tell us what led you to this decision, and how did you sort of navigate making the ultimate decision that we're going to move forward on this?
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me when I started here that we would be looking at Division II or sitting as a Division II member now, I would have said you're crazy. It really started actually in 2020, and I had another AD at another institution in our conference reach out, and we had a good relationship, and he said, "Hey, what are you doing with Division II?" And I, at the time, we were NAIA being very successful. We were growing. When I came here, the president wanted us to grow enrollment through athletics, so we were actually adding sports and building up our enrollment. And so, when he asked me that question, I was like, "I'm not doing anything." I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, we're evaluating it. We've got a consultant." And I was like, "Oh no." We already knew another school in our conference was pretty sure that they were going to go. And so I really didn't want to be like the odd person out and see our school kind of left behind. So I thought the biggest thing for me, I just have to go through the research, and I've got to go through the process and give the school what it needed to make an educated decision. And it wasn't like, hey, we're starting this project and we're going Division II. No, it's like we're starting this project and we're going to evaluate everything about the jump to Division II and about what we're doing in the NAIA, and then we're going to make an educated decision on what's best for Vanguard through that process. And so in 2020, I actually started reaching out to COVID came into play and shut the world down. And gave me an opportunity to step back. And I reached out to the other NCAA Division II ADs here on the West Coast who had made the move from the NAIA to Biola, Point Loma, Azusa Pacific, Concordia. And I talked to all their ADs. I just asked them about the process, what was good about it, what was hard about it, what was different about it, and really was able to get an understanding of the differences between the NAIA and NCAA through that process. And for me, what really came down to, a lot was a little bit financial for us, but that wasn't the ultimate decision. The ultimate decision first came down, well, what's the best regional fit for Vanguard University? We were struggling to get games in the NAIA with our success and having to do a lot of travel through that time. And so as we were redoing and I was doing the budget analysis on what it was going to take to get there, both lined up. The NAIA and NCAA were about the same. One of the big changes would be we were spending a lot on postseason, and the NCAA had the opportunity for us not to spend as much money on postseason, and we could roll some of that postseason money into our actual budgets to do that. And so I opened it up to the president, and I was under the VP of Student Affairs at that time when we first started discussions. And we hired a consultant, Nancy Mitchell. She's one of the great. She's been around the game for a long time and really helped give us a great evaluation of where we were and what we wanted to do. It was a hard time to actually transition though, because we were doing everything by Zoom. Nobody was in person. So not having in-person meetings and trying to get a read of how everybody wanted to go through it. And so, and the school was trying, like, we're in COVID, right? We're just still trying to figure out COVID. And yet I'm going, hey, what about changing divisions? What does this look like? So I was able to put together what I felt like was a pretty good plan, a pretty good budget analysis to our university. And what I mostly wanted was this to be a university decision. This is not Jeff Bussell's decision. This was not an athletic decision. I wanted what was best for the university, or what we felt like was best for the university moving forward. And our ultimate decision came down that this was the best regional fit for us in the NCAA Division II for us to move forward during that time. Because I had been in the NAIA for 20 years. So I didn't want to compare NAIA and NCAA. I just want to say, hey, what's best regionally for us to do that? And from there, we put together an athletic committee. I sat in many meetings, and I had to repeat myself quite a few times for people to understand, because not everybody was on board in the beginning. Even my own coaching staff, really walking through with them through that time of what it was going to take to get to a Division II level as a university. And one thing the process did is it really united us as a campus, because we had to look at every process through that.
So you started in 2020, endured COVID.
Yeah.
When did you then make the decision, okay, we're going to apply?
Yeah, so we were actually going to get ready to apply. And let me try and get my dates right again. I think it was 2023. So 23, 28, 24. Yes, 2023. And we got up to the last moment and January before we apply. And we just weren't there as a university yet as to make that decision to get there. So we ended up pulling back. Our athletic advisory committee was great in that. I supported it, although it was tough. Because remember, I'd put in 3 hard years of work of trying to get us to this point. It was probably the best decision we made as a university at that time, was to hold off for another year. And then we revisited it that summer, and then we decided to apply there in 24 for us to make the transition.
Well, I hope people who are listening to this can kind of get an idea that this is not, in some cases, I'm aware that schools presidents just decide we're going to do it. It's not we're studying it, whatever. It's just we're going to do it, and which is kind of a lousy way to make any major decision. But you went through a painstaking process, followed by tons of education that you had to provide so that others understood. And now I know others who have gone through this process, and it is no walk in the park.
Mhm.
So you make the decision, you make the application now. Now you've got a 3-year process to prove that you belong. Talk a little bit about that and what were some of the highs and the lows of this?
Yeah, it was exciting. Okay, we're beginning a new journey. We've applied, but now we've got to go through evaluation by the NCAA. And I was blessed, once again, Nancy Mitchell, a consultant, helping lead us through, and blessed with a experienced staff. My compliance person here, Jane Textera, who had been with the Pac West Conference in Division II and worked at the NCAA through that process. I had a faculty athletic representative who was actually a compliance person at Biola, Amy Youngkite at that time. So I had a really solid team around me to begin that journey. But you're looking at everything, because you can take a lot of different things. One thing the NCAA Division II says, make it yours, right? And so you're trying to go, okay, what's this school doing over here? And we had great input from other schools, but you had to look at something and go, hey, that's not how we work it here at Vanguard. Our processes are different. And so you had to refine every process, because that's what the NCAA wanted the most, is like, what's your process for compliance? What's your process for eligibility? Because those things are different in the NCAA than they are in NAIA. And so then it became educating, and you have to educate everybody from donors, because the donor thing is different. Things we could do, in the past we couldn't do anymore. And so you had to educate. We had to get a lot of working groups together. We called it a road show, and we just run around to faculty, to admissions office, to financial aid office, registrar's office, to other staff, student affairs. And we just kind of were sharing, hey, here's all the rules. Compliance is a lot more strict at this level than it was at the NAIA. So the roadshow was a really good opportunity. What I felt like was really fun to connect. But it was a ton of work, because not only are you trying to get everybody moving in the right direction on the same bus. A lot of people have different questions. You're challenging other departments' processes as well, right? Because the NCAA wants to see their process change to align to what we do. And so it helped connect us. I'll actually say this: one of the greatest connectors in us moving through it was actually a baseball game that really turned the tide for our campus for some reason. So we were playing Westmont College, and we ended up sweeping them in a 4-game series, but they protested one of the games. A ball down the right field line, got stuck in the corner, didn't get stuck in the corner. Umpire raised his hands, didn't raise his hands, and we still scored. They protested the game, and then we had to replay the game from that point. And people on my campus were really upset about us having to replay this game. And we had more faculty come out to the sporting event. The baseball field was just packed with people. I had more faculty talking to me about athletics after that one event. And everybody just all of a sudden just came on board for athletics. It was a baseball game that we had to replay, just sparked a conversation and relationships through that time. But, making sure all your manuals are spot on, editing manuals. It was very time consuming, but very gracious to a great staff that I had to help walk us through that.
Well, yeah. And if I understand correctly, every year is an evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
So you're creating policies and procedures. You probably had to create a few positions that didn't exist previously. And every year you got to pass the test, right?
Yes. Every you got to pass the test. And one thing that I learned in that process was to just embrace, and I wasn't doing this well in the beginning, but just embrace that the NCAA was coming in not to tell you you're doing something wrong, but for you to grow. And one thing that I told on the first visit is I felt like our staff was good. We had a growth mindset. We wanted to grow. We wanted to hear feedback. We wanted to know what we were doing wrong, or what we could make better, and make it better is really what we wanted to do. So, so any feedback coming back wasn't negative feedback. It was for our growth. It was for, hey, I've worked with these people at other schools, and this is what they do well. Well, that's great. Can we implement that here?
Yeah. So did you have the same group of evaluators each year?
No, they had to have one consultant that comes out. She was the same person each year. The first year that we had it, we had a couple ADs. come and visit, but they didn't come back for the second year visit for that. Yeah. And then for us, because we were going to apply in 2023 and then we held off a year, we felt like we were in a much better position because we were still working towards that and making changes during that. And so actually in our year 2 process, we wanted to put in a waiver to try to waive year 3 for it. And so that was extra pressure. Can we get this waiver? So we only have to sit out 1 year of playoffs. That would be wonderful for our students, especially for the older ones that would like to compete. So
without question, being an athletic director, working in college athletics is time consuming. It's busy. The workload can be significant. So my question is, how did this process affect you personally?
Wow, great question. Personally, it was tough. It was very challenging. Kind of share a little bit of backstory is, coming out of COVID. COVID was tiring, just trying to figure out how to put athletes on the court, especially here in California. We were such strict rules. And then managing all of COVID, you had some coaches who were like, why we wear a mask, and some coaches like, no, we need to wear a mask. And it was just a disjointed time. So, and it's funny because everything was coming together at one time. We were growing as an athletic department. When I started here, we had 187 student athletes. Today we have 450 student athletes, right? And then COVID hit, and so we're dealing with that challenge. And then we're looking at Division II, and not only looking at Division II, now we're looking at a new gym facility. So we're tearing down our old facility, and now we have to figure out where we're going to play for 2 years. So during that process, 22, 23, it became overwhelming for me, and almost to the point of burnout. And I was blessed to have a great leader who was looking out for me, Tim Young, who was the VP of Student Affairs at the time for us, and really saw that I was struggling and hooked me up to a mentor that really helped change my life. And because during that time, it was like even tough for me to get out of bed. Like I'd come into work and I was like, it seemed like so many things had to get done, and I was just stuck. And I was like, where do I even start? Because everything's piling up on my plate and I don't even know where to start. Like I love my job. I love the people here. I love my family, but I'm really like stuck right now in life and trying to figure out like, what is this? And one of the things that got me the most was fear. I didn't think fear would affect me as much as it did because it really hadn't come up in my life. The one thing I learned from my mentor is, as athletes and as people in athletics, there's sometimes we don't deal with our feelings really well. And I wasn't really dealing with my feelings well, and new feelings were coming on, like fear. It was coming like, doubt came in, or is this what we're supposed to be doing? Should we be doing this? Like, even though I was doing the homework and I felt good about the plan, those things started to creep into my life. And as I worked through handling those feelings with my mentor and walking through that, I had to kind of really build myself up, because I really actually started negative talk for myself during that time. And I had to get a new mindset, like, and really, because a lot of times I was playing the movie forward as a leader, and I was just looking at the negative instead of like playing the movie forward. Well, it could also end out positive, right? Yeah. And I really struggled. Like, we were being successful, but I personally wasn't feeling successful. And mostly because I wasn't remembering some of the successes. So number one thing I'll say to leaders, celebrate all your successes. And then when you're struggling, go back and remember things you've been through to get there. I mean, in that time, we won a national championship in men's volleyball. We won a national championship in beach volleyball. These were all new sports that I just started 4 or 5 years, and never in my wildest dream did I think we would be competing for national championships. But yet here I'm struggling with, like, I'm not being successful. Well, what is that? And where does that feeling come from? So I feel like over the last 3 years, I've just been able to make lots of strides to really grow my leadership, to step into my leadership even more during that time. And one of the biggest things I learned is to be vulnerable with my staff. A lot of my staff, when I came to work, I was engaged, but I'm sure they could see it on my face that I was overwhelmed and I was struggling and those kind of things. I mean, other people can see that stuff in you, but they don't always know how to tell you, right? And so it's been really good just to take that moment and really just regain a footing in what we're doing. And we got our waiver in July of this year. And now I've been able to look back at the 5-year journey and go, wow, look at how far we've come. I've been able to see the full picture of everything that we've been able to accomplish, which has been pretty cool to see. Because you're always, sometimes you're leading with blind faith. You don't always know what the future is going to look like, and sometimes you just got to take the step and keep taking the next step after that. So personally, yeah, it took a toll on me. I'm just thankful for great leadership around me who's built me back up. I'm thankful for a president who's believed in me, and 2 vice presidents have believed in me. I'm thankful for a coaching staff who they didn't see the vision in the beginning. And I think that was the toughest part, is they didn't always see the vision that I thought. But when we finally got here, they're like, oh, I see it now, Jeff. I see why we are where we are. I'm like, yeah, I would have enjoyed you seeing that in the beginning. So, yeah, I feel like the last couple of years, I'm just in a new health space, mentally, physically, and taking better care of myself too, right? Because I feel like I was so busy trying to take care of everybody else that I forgot myself in that process. And that's one of the things I think I've been able to dive into, is take care of myself so I can really take care of others better.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that. And there are still, like it or not, a lot of stigmas related to depression and our mental health and well-being, particularly in the athletic world. And I think vulnerability is a great thing. I think that you were able, I don't know so much that you asked for help, but that you had a mentor there who saw that you needed it.
Yeah.
And that you had the courage to not slough it off and say, hey, I'm good, I'm fine, but to spend the time to listen. It's not always going to be a project as big as transitioning your athletic department to a whole nother membership level. Mm-hmm. The things that we do on a daily basis add up, and they can wear on you, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I think that it definitely, especially in this job, as things I expected. One of the things I don't think I expected in this job was the emotional toll on an athletic director. And leading from where you're leading. And what I'm talking about is like your coaches, deal with a lot of the same things I just talked about, right? They have struggles of their own, and trying to lead them and have them sit in your office, and sometimes they just dump on you. And one of the things I had to learn is how to actually, I don't call it dumping anymore. I'm going to sit in the well with my coach, because right now they need an outlet, and I'm their outlet that they need. When I first started, I think, sitting in this position, they would come in and bring up a lot of negative stuff, and I would be like, oh no, I want to be positive here. I want to be looking, be positive. But what I finally realized is they actually just needed a place to process their feelings. And I think I've been able to create a safe place for them to process their feelings, which is one of the things, and really create a more emotional connection than just a business connection. We here in my department, we like to slow down. I like to ask them about their feelings. I like to sit in a staff meeting and see where they're at, and just process with them, because coaching, especially coaching today, or even working in athletics today, is very, very hard, and takes a toll on you. So,
well, and I can tell that your experience as a coach has built a level of understanding and empathy that enables you to approach that in a different way.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. You mentioned that you wish your coaches had been on board from the beginning. But isn't that true in leadership? So many times we have to have the vision, despite the fact that not everyone immediately jumps in line behind you and says, hey, let's go.
Yeah.
All of that to say, it can be a very lonely position from time to time.
Yeah, it definitely can be. And that's where I encourage all leaders to make sure you're surrounded with really good people, and not good people that are just going to tell you things to lift you up, but people that are going to tell you the truth about things you need to grow in. Because
Yeah.
I wouldn't be sitting here without a growth mindset of my own. And I want feedback from the leaders I work with or mentors. I want them to really tell me. And I think that's what I've had here is really good leaders to grow me. And I could take things personally. And I think during that time that I was struggling, I think I did start to take things personally, like transitioning the faculty to believe that Division II is the best way for us to go was just not a easy process until I sat on the provost hiring committee, and where I got to interact with more of the faculty. And they're like, Jeff, hey, we don't have an issue with you or athletics. We just, are struggling over here in academics, with finances too. And they really thought that we were being supported at a really high level, or we were being invested in. And during that process, but it really helped change my focus to really have a conversation with them. Like, this isn't personal. It's not us against you. It's more, we're asking for things on our side and maybe not seeing the results. And maybe you are, or maybe you weren't, and I can share with them. So I think those personal experiences I had with faculty during that time were really, really helpful to understand, to not take everything personally, and really just talk and shared experiences with people.
Well, yeah, and it sounds like at least part of what you told them is no, the financial impact was negligible
Yeah.
from one to the other.
Yeah.
Well, I have one final question, and this is not something we've talked about before, but I'm going to kind of put you on the spot.
All right.
What would you tell? You talked about the growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
For someone out there in the world who's thinking, what is this BOSCA? What does BOSCA do? Why should I be involved in it? What would you tell them?
Well, I tell them it's been the most impactful probably event for a college administrator, especially small college administrator, in my time. Like, because it's small, it's intimate, it's a place where you can go and grow, you can ask questions, and you're going to meet great people who've experienced or want to experience being an athletic director during that time. I just think for me that I've reached out to a lot of people that I met there when I was struggling and going through things, and hey, let me share what's going on here. Or do you have an answer for this? And Jim, you've always been at the top of the list of doing that. But I think BOSCA, I think you always got to keep growing. I think, for me, I kind of broke it down to this. I went from the comfort zone of us being in the NAIA, right? And then us making a transition, what brought me into what I call the fear zone. And then the only way for me to get out of the fear zone and working with my mentor was to get to the learning zone. And the learning zone wasn't just to learn about the NCAA. It was actually to learn about myself and some of the intricacies in how I grew up. What was my family dynamic, and how does that relate to my leadership now? And the learning zone, then that gets you to your growth zone, right? And that's where you start to live out your purpose, and you start to live out the things that you've been called to do or want to do, whatever way you put that. But I think those are big things. If you're in a fear zone, if you're wondering what's next, to get into that learning zone, and BOSCA provides that. And one thing I like, Jim, is you've kind of well-rounded. It started out more of as a fundraising thing, but now you cover so many different things in BOSCA that will help somebody's leadership. And it's always good to hear what other people are doing, and you may not be able to do everything that they say up there, but you can take a nugget probably out of everybody and bring it back to your campus or bring it back to your job. Especially if you want to grow in there and take the next step and are really looking to step into that AD job.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, Jeff, that as an athletic director, the joy of my position was watching these 19 and 20-year-olds matriculate and grow and learn and graduate and go impact the world.
Mm-hmm.
For me now, at this stage of my career and life, my joy is I get to see young people, young administrators who've coached and their SIDs, and they have this goal in mind. And so to see what you've done in your career, the impact that you've made, the goals that you've been able to achieve it's incredible for me. And so without being condescending, I just want to say I'm so proud of you. I'm grateful to know you. And I particularly appreciate you taking the time to join us today for this small college conversation.
Jim, it's been a pleasure. It's like a full circle moment, I think, because like you said, you were with me in the beginning when I was just figuring out, like, well, do I want to be a sports information director, or do I want to go into to be an AD, or what do I want to do? And technology was moving too fast to continue to be in the sports information director world. But this has been a great full circle moment, and I appreciate you just hearing my story. Vanguard's been a great experience, and as I tell people, anything worth doing is going to be hard, right? And one of the things I've been able to do is embrace the hard and do hard better through this process, because all those things, everything you go through is for a purpose. And it's for a purpose of good. It's hard to understand it sometimes in the moment, but it really is. And just want to, anybody out there that's listening that, maybe could be struggling, feel free to reach out to me and, use me as a resource as well. It's been really great to talk to you, Jim.
The same goes for me. That brings us to the end of another small college conversation. I'm grateful to my friend and our guest today, Jeff Bussell. And I encourage you all to join us for our next small college conversation.